All right, so today we're diving into this awesome conversation between Joe Rogan and Bert Kreischer.
Oh, yeah, from the Joe Rogan Experience.
Exactly. And you can tell these guys, they're both like these huge forces in like entertainment, and they've got this genuine friendship. It like really comes through.
Yeah, their energy is so great, and it's really fascinating how they like swing back and forth between these serious, insightful moments, and then they'll just like crack up laughing like a second later.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they cover a wild range of stuff. We've got stand-up comedy.
Oh, yeah, some intense stories about Boston.
Even bow hunting. I mean...
Of course, because Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. So
one of the things that really stood out to me was how much Rogan was like a mentor to Kreischer, like really pushing him to ditch those like cushy TV gigs.
Yeah.
And just go all in on stand-up and podcasting. Remember that story about Rogan calling Kreischer when he was like riding a motorcycle in Vietnam?
Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
It's pretty wild, but it makes you think, like, what did Rogan see in Kreischer that maybe others didn't? Like, what made him believe so strongly in his potential?
Yeah, like what was it about Kreischer?
I think it was a few things. You know, Kreischer's got that, like, raw, unfiltered, comedic energy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which is really infectious, and he's not afraid to be vulnerable and share his struggles.
Yeah, which makes him really relatable.
Exactly. And Rogan, being a seasoned comedian himself, probably saw that right away,
Right.
like a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, he just needed some guidance.
Exactly. It speaks volumes about Rogan. He could have stayed in his lane, but he went out of his way to help Kreischer.
Right. It makes you think, have you ever had like a mentor who pushed you to like step outside your comfort zone
Oh, absolutely.
and go for something big?
It's amazing the impact a good mentor can have.
For sure. And that leads perfectly into their conversation about the rise of podcasting.
Yes.
Which is crazy to think about now. But back then it was like the Wild West.
It really was.
Even guys like Howard Stern were like, nah, this is a fad. This isn't going to work.
They thought it was a joke. And Rogan was like, no, this is the future of uncensored content.
Ahead of the curve.
Completely.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how much things have changed. Podcasting is mainstream now.
Totally.
And that uncensored format is super popular, but it raises some questions about responsibility. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Where do we draw the line?
Exactly. And it all ties back to Howard Stern. Remember all those fines he got for indecent content?
Oh, yeah.
Millions of dollars.
During the Bush era, the FCC was really cracking down.
Right.
And Rogan sees those fines as censorship.
Disguised as, like, protecting broadcasting standards.
Exactly. It makes you think, where do we draw the line between free speech and what's harmful or offensive?
It's a tough question.
Really complex.
Especially with how much media is changing these days.
Absolutely. And, as we get deeper into their conversation, we see Rogan's fascination with the darker side of life.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with his stories about Boston. I mean, teaching Taekwondo to a hitman.
A hitman from the Irish mob.
That's insane.
It's like straight out of a movie. It is. And the details he shares about those cases are chilling.
The brutality, the sense of like, they can get away with anything.
It's wild. It paints such a dark picture of that world.
It does. But it's like he's drawn to those stories because they're the ultimate test of human resilience.
Right. Like, how do people survive in that world?
Yeah, and it reminds you that even in a civilized society, there's always this darkness lurking beneath the surface.
You never know what's going on under the surface.
Exactly.
It's kind of scary, but fascinating, too.
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting how Rogan can go from, like, talking about organized crime to giving health advice.
Yeah, like mouth taping for better sleep.
Right. It sounds so weird.
But he's super open about his sleep apnea and deviated septum and says mouth taping helps him sleep better and even improved his jiu-jitsu.
Wow. So it makes you think, like, are we all walking around with these little issues that are, like, secretly messing us up?
Yeah, good point. We might not even know until we fix them. And Rogan's always talking about his health journey, like encouraging people to be more proactive.
Right? Like, he keeps telling Kreischer to get his hernia and nose fixed, too.
Yeah, he's like, dude, just get it done.
Yeah. And they also talk about Kreischer's issues with painkillers.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. So many people struggle with that.
And Kreischer's wife had to stage an intervention. It's crazy how easy it is to get hooked even on prescription stuff.
It's scary, for sure, and it shows how important it is to have a good support system.
For real. And it's interesting how they connect that to, like, having a purpose when you work out.
Oh, you mean like training for a specific event?
Exactly. Rogan says having a goal like a fight or even, like, preparing for a wolf attack.
A wolf attack.
Yeah, he says it changes how you approach exercise.
Makes sense. Gives you that extra push. And speaking of wolves, Rogan gets deep into wildlife. He even talks about making a murder sanctuary at his house.
A murder sanctuary? What is that?
Basically a place where he could keep like predatory animals like a crocodile monitor.
Oh, wow.
But then he realized it was kind of messed up ethically. It's a funny story, but it shows how much he loves nature and is willing to like question himself.
He's always pushing boundaries in every way.
Totally. And then they go from exotic animals to like how to tell if a snake is poisonous. Remember that rhyme?
Oh, yeah. Red touches yellow.
Kill a fella, red touches black, venom lack.
Classic.
Such simple advice, but could save your life. And they talk about wolves being reintroduced in Colorado, too.
Yeah, and how it affects the ecosystem.
It's a good reminder that even good intentions can have consequences.
Right, finding that balance is tough. And, of course, we can't forget Rogan's love of bow hunting.
Of course, he goes all in, talking about trees, stands all the gear, even the physics of shooting accurately.
He's so passionate you can hear it in his voice.
I'm not a hunter, but you gotta respect the skill and dedication.
Yeah, it's more than a hobby for Rogan. It's like a way of life, connecting with nature, challenging himself.
He's super meticulous in everything he does, podcasting, comedy, his workouts.
Right, always striving for mastery. And then from bow hunting, they jump to storytelling.
Specifically, Taylor Sheridan, the guy who created Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah, Rogan loves him. Compares him to Hemingway.
Interesting comparison. What do you think?
I see it. They both capture the essence of their subjects, whether it's the West or human nature.
Yeah, and they both use language in a really powerful way.
They even recommend watching Hell or High Water, written by Sheridan.
Oh, it's a great movie. Really shows off his talent. And from Sheridan, they talk about Hollywood in general.
And how the Oscars aren't what they used to be.
Rogan and Kreischer think they've lost their shine because of streaming and the focus on binge-worthy stuff.
Right. They say movie quality has gone down, and things like Will Smith slapping Chris Rock don't help.
Yeah, that was wild. It's fascinating to see how technology is changing the whole movie industry. Are you more into streaming or movies these days?
I watch way more streaming, but there's still something special about the big screen experience.
Totally. It's different when you're with a crowd and then they talk about stand-up comedy. Kreischer tells this hilarious story about partying with Dave Chappelle.
Oh, yeah. Getting career advice at 3 a.m. while hooked up to an IV.
That's insane. It sounds like a dream.
It shows the crazy bond comedians have always supporting each other.
And then they go from that to talking about their own desire for adventure. Kreischer wants to sail to Hawaii or climb Kilimanjaro.
He's always pushing himself to the limit.
He even compares it to wanting to be a werewolf.
Wow.
Embracing that wild side. And Rogan is more cautious. He gets the appeal of adventure, but emphasizes being prepared.
Right. He's the voice of reason, reminding us to dream big but be smart about it.
Exactly. And that brings us to their observations about different cultures. Rogan talks about filming a movie in Serbia,
where the people were super open and physical.
It was a culture shock for him, but he kind of liked it. He talks about those Serbian basketball chants that would never fly in America.
And he says Serbians are bred different when it comes to sports. Look at their success in MMA and boxing.
It's a bold statement, but it makes you think about how culture shapes athleticism. What do you think?
It's hard to say for sure, but there are definitely cultural factors involved. Access to training, societal expectations, even the popular sports.
Right. And then you contrast that with Kreischer doing stand-up in Dubai, where they're super strict about clothes and content.
It shows how different things are around the world. What's cool in one place is taboo in another.
We got to be aware of those differences and respectful of other cultures.
Totally. And that awareness can open our eyes to all sorts of new experiences. And it's amazing how they can go from talking about cultural differences to, like, these really personal stories.
Right, like Rogan meeting Mel Gibson at a UFC fight.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that would be like a deep conversation, but they make it work.
They're so good at finding those little universal truths in everyday stuff.
Right, it's like reminding us that even celebrities are just people dealing with awkward situations.
Yeah, and sometimes those weird encounters turn into something funny or meaningful.
Like that story about Kreischer partying with Dave Chappelle and getting career advice while hooked up to an IV.
Oh, man, that's classic.
It's like a reminder that you never know where you'll learn something important.
And that sometimes work and play just blend together, especially in creative fields.
Yeah, and it shows how important mentorship is, finding those people who can guide you and support you.
Absolutely. And speaking of support, it was really powerful to hear them talk about addiction and mental health.
Yeah, Kreischer being so open about his struggles with painkillers was really brave.
It reminds us that these issues can affect anyone, no matter how successful they seem.
And Rogan talking about seeking health is so important. It makes it okay to not be okay.
Yeah, like we're all in this together. Don't be afraid to reach out.
You know, one thing that really stuck with me was that idea of finding your tribe.
Those people who really get you and support you.
Rogan talks about having this close group of friends who are always there for each other.
It's a reminder that we all need those people in our lives to make us laugh, help us grow, and remind us we're not alone.
It makes you think about who you surround yourself with and how they affect you. Do you have your own tribe?
I think we all do in different ways. Sometimes it's family, friends, people we work with, or who share our hobbies.
It's about nurturing those relationships and appreciating what each person brings to our lives.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this conversation, what are some of the big takeaways for now?
I think it's that reminder that life is full of surprises, and it's about embracing those experiences, good and bad, finding the humor and the meaning.
And surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and challenge you to be your best.
I love that Rogan and Kreischer show us that it's okay to be curious, ask questions, and challenge the status quo.
And that sometimes the best conversations happen when you least expect them.
If you want to see more of their unique perspectives, check out Hell or High Water. It's a great example of the kind of storytelling they love.
Or for some laughs, watch one of their stand-up specials. You won't regret it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.